to get you from getting emails like this to getting emails like this, we need to fix your portfolio. We are officially stepping it up, making our portfolios look more senior, choosing better projects, and leveling up our storytelling so they simply cannot say no, because it would be crazy not to hire you. Let's start. We are starting with the absolute basics here. How many projects do you need in your portfolio, and how deep do you need to go into each of them? And be honest with me. Did you put all of your projects in your portfolio with some mock-ups just to show the final shiny results? Or maybe you're on the opposite side of the spectrum and you just have one or two really long case studies. In either case, there is a sweet spot for it between 4 to 5 projects with decent, quite long case studies, but not overwhelming ones. We will talk about it a little bit more later in this video. And you may ask how I came up with the number of 4 to 5 projects. Fair question. So it is enough to show that you can repeatedly deliver high quality results. At the same time, it is not too overwhelming to analyze. Even if you have 10 super high quality projects in your portfolio, people will not be able to analyze them and also make sense of the work that you've done in the past and the progress that you've made. Also, with 4 to 5 projects, you are forced to choose your best work. So it works for you as well, to your advantage. From my experience, you can find yourself in one of two situations. You can either be at the very beginning of your design journey, where having 4 projects for your portfolio is a challenge. It is a lot of material, of high quality material to gather for you. And then my advice is to create your portfolio projects based on imaginary briefs, example projects for your portfolio. It doesn't have to be only client work. And you're welcome to use briefs on my website. Of course, change the topics slightly, change the titles of the projects, maybe the scope, so you're not doing exactly the same project as everyone else, but they are there for you to use. Or you may have too many projects to choose from. In this case, congratulations, it is a really good problem to have. Choose the projects that have the best design process, where you can show data, so how you've actually influenced metrics with your design, what the results were, and the ones that you would like to do more of in the future when it comes to the platform, the topic, maybe a niche that you specialize in. Now let's talk about the second aspect, the depth of your case studies, so how detailed they should be. And here we're aiming for the jobs that are full-time, in-house product design jobs. And for those jobs, you will need in-depth case studies. Unfortunately, dribble-like presentations of mock-ups will not land you those jobs. We need more details, we need text, explanations, we need data, we need research to support that. So it will be a little bit more work to put together this kind of portfolio, but it will be worth it at the end because you will land those high quality jobs. It really breaks my heart to sometimes see designers, especially junior designers with a lot of potential, presenting their work this way. So only final mock-ups presented on Dribbble or on a platform like this. They might have gotten bad advice from someone, or maybe they've seen freelance designers like UI designers getting success from those platforms and this kind of presentation, but unfortunately it is not enough for a product design portfolio. Those may be beautiful designs and great UI design, very flashy in many cases, but it is just not enough. Dribbble can be your secondary platform, so you can of course upload your designs there, but it shouldn't be your main product design portfolio. Moving on to the second most common mistake, idealizing your projects. I see so many designers presenting those perfect case studies with a perfect flow, perfect process, amazing iterations, all the time in the world for research, usability testing results that were so perfect they just needed to make one tweak after the usability testing and nothing went wrong in those projects. And you can tell when reviewing those kind of portfolios that you can smell lies all around. I maybe had 2 projects in my 10 years of being a designer that had a perfect design process with all the steps by the book. 2 projects out of tens of big projects and probably even more smaller projects. And even those 2 projects, they were not perfect because I made some stupid mistakes. So you can see that it is unrealistic to have everything perfect in your case study. The solution here is pretty simple. Show what actually happened and how you overcame those obstacles. It will build your credibility and show your actual skills that people are looking for. Because everyone can execute in perfect conditions when they can execute the whole process as they want to, but not everyone can solve problems and work around the constraints. Practically, here's how to execute it in your case studies. First, you need to explain all the constraints at the beginning. There's time limitations, scope, maybe some technical limitations, steps of the process that you had to skip. Just explain everything. Then show everything that has happened, absolutely everything, even the embarrassing things. You forgot about a key path? Show it. The usability testing went terribly wrong and you had to go back to the drawing board? Show it. Your team didn't make the launch on time and you had to cut 50% of the scope? Show it as well. The key is to explain why something happened, what were the consequences, and how you improved your processes or whatever it was in the future. So maybe you've changed the prototype, maybe you've changed how you work with the team, maybe you did another round of testing. The idea is to show that you understand the whole situation and you've learned from it. The reviewers are looking at your portfolio not only to understand that, okay, this person can execute the design process correctly, but also that they can overcome some obstacles and work around the constraints, because this is the real life. So being authentic really pays off. Next, we have a more tactical point, overloading with text, or as I like to call it, walls of text. We need to move away from writing our hearts out in those case studies. It is not a book, it is not an essay, it is a case study. And I'm always wondering where it is coming from, because I swear almost every designer who I helped build their first portfolio, they start with those elaborate paragraphs when working on their case study. And I think it might be from school. I think that might be it, because we were writing so much in school and being really rewarded for that. But staying in the school theme, think about your case study less like an essay. I think it would be more of a PowerPoint presentation, but not slides only. It's like a PowerPoint presentation that someone will have to read through, but not with that many details, if that makes sense. And here are some rules I follow regarding text in the case studies that will hopefully help you formulate your text a little bit better. So the first one is using bullet points. I love them. Can't get enough of them. It is the best way to express ideas, in my opinion, in the case studies. It's really brief, short, to the chase, or whatever, if you can say that. So use bullet points. The second thing is to keep the sentences short. Sometimes I ask my coaching clients to use bullet points in their portfolio, and they simply split their long paragraphs into bullet points, this is just not it. There are still long sentences. We need to shorten them to make them more readable, more scannable, and then use bullet points to display that. And this is my favorite one, sprinkle some sentences and annotations around the visuals. So make the visuals that you put in your portfolio, so your mockups, your sketches, work together with text by adding annotations and those short sentences that describe them. It is a way easier way to digest the content for people. And if you really need to write a paragraph, keep it short as well. So 3-4 lines, this is the most optimal for people to actually read through. If you have a longer piece of text, you can also split into those smaller paragraphs. It will be just so much easier for people to digest. And to give you context and the why behind all of this advice is that people don't actually read the case studies. I know, it's a bummer. We spent a lot of time writing those, but they actually scan. So they scan through the case study, look at some information, and then they selectively read maybe a paragraph or maybe a line of text or an annotation. So this is more how people consume it. When you're a reviewer and you're looking at the portfolio, and this is the very first run through the portfolio, you might spend 2 or 3 minutes on a case study. And I know it's a very little time because we usually just scan through it to see if there are qualities about this case study regarding the process, regarding how it's built, regarding the topic that will allow us to, or make sense for us to analyze it deeper. So in this first run, we'll just spend around 2 to 3 minutes. Later on, of course, when you're preparing for an interview with you, we will go a little bit more in depth, etc. But this first run, it would be great if you can make it easier for reviewers by using those strategies that I told you about regarding text. And also, they are more likely to remember information from your case study, so automatically you will stand out a little bit more if it's easy to digest. In short, instead of perfecting your paragraphs and writing out your case study, spend this time on making it scannable and ready for selective reading. Because remember, the quality of text that is already there needs to be high, because if they decide to read your case study or a part of your case study, it needs to, of course, live up to their expectations. The next mistake that we need to fix is starting from the middle. Many designers in their portfolios just jump into the project without any context about the product or the goals. It is about the good old storytelling, and I know that it is being used a lot as a keyword in social media recently, but here are some practical ways you can improve your storytelling in your case studies. First, introduce the product. I don't know why, but almost nobody does it, and it seems really logical to start from here is the product that I will be talking about, and many people just jump into the project or the feature of this particular product without explaining the whole thing. It is super simple, just take a screenshot or two and write a description. So for example, this is the task management platform for marketing teams that I'm working on, and we already have the list view and the Kanban view, and the project will be about the calendar view. It is an introduction, very short and simple one, but it actually sets and anchors the whole project and explain to people where we are and where we're going to be. The next thing is to start with the problem. Why is this project even happening? You cannot say that, oh, because my product manager came to me and said we had to do it. There needs to be a reason behind it. Maybe we want to improve some metrics, maybe user complained, maybe there is a new niche that your company wants to be in. So mention all that because again, it helps anchor the story for the reader. And this connects also to goals. And in my free 5-day portfolio masterclass, there is a chapter about goals where there is more details. In this video, I'm just going to say one thing. Do not write your goals as my goal was to create this app, because this is not your goal. This is your task. This is not the goal for the project. And I see it in so many portfolios. It drives me crazy, actually. You need to be more high level, more user-oriented, more business-oriented when listing your goals in your portfolio. Next point is to explain your role and introduce your team. And of course, don't introduce them by name. It is more about introducing by role. So a product manager, you work with an engineer or multiple engineers, with a QA person, with maybe someone from marketing, just to give a whole picture here. And it is especially important for junior designers because it might be unclear whether you were the only designer in the project or maybe some other designer was helping you and what was exactly the scope that you were taking care of. You need to be precise here. So if you did the whole thing, take credit. If you didn't, take credit for what you actually did. It is especially true for big projects where people sometimes when reviewing your portfolio may have doubts whether or not you were able with your small experience to execute on this whole project. So as I said, take credit when it's needed. Give credit when it's due because you don't want to be explaining those things, especially in a disappointing way that they thought that you did the whole project and you actually just did, for example, the first exploration or the first iteration. You don't want to be explaining those details during the portfolio presentation or some kind of recruitment call because it just sets the wrong tone. It's better to be honest from the very beginning. And the last point is to highlight challenges and explain how you resolve them. You can think about it a little bit as you would think about the book. So there is a problem, there is a hero, you, resolving the problem, and there is a path to resolution. It will help you highlight key moments in the project and explain how you contributed to the resolution. And side note, there is a really good recommendation here of the book that I would like to share, Building a Story Brand. It is more marketing focused, but in general, it is about how to tell stories based on this formula that is used for so many books already. And you may say, okay, it sounds good in theory, but how do I exactly put it in my case study? And I would say be quite literal about it. So list all the issues that you've discovered based on your evaluation or research that you did, and actually show how you brainstorm the solution for each of them, how you design and how you resolve them. I have a small list of sections that you can use, which is challenge, constraints, ideas, research, solution, and impact. And this is going to make your portfolio look so mature and so senior. I can't wait. Let's summarize quickly. Starting your case study from the middle, as if you were talking to your existing team who's already engaged in the project, is a no-go. Assume people know nothing about the product, the project, the industry, about anything, as if you were talking to your relatives who know nothing about tech, for example. And I think we've all been there as designers. Answering what do you do for work just becomes the most difficult question of them all, because what you're going to say, I make flows and I design interfaces, that's a little vague. I draw buttons, you end up with something like I'm pushing pixels. But anyway, moving on. Too much content in case studies. Sometimes, well, usually, case studies are simply too long. And I know that at the beginning of this video, I said that we need in-depth analysis of every project, and it remains true, but there is a balance to it. For example, you don't need to show all the sketches and all the ideas that you were considering. Just choose the leading ones and start the story there. Another thing is that you don't need to add usability testing scenario directly to your case study. If you really want to, you can link it, of course, but not put it directly on the pages. It is enough to show just the path that you took people through, so the task list. And the same thing goes for research findings. You don't need to show the whole spreadsheet with all the details and every single piece of feedback that your users gave you. Your role is to synthesize here. So show the good feedback, the positive feedback that you got, and the negative feedback that you have to improve upon. And the same thing goes for usability testing. So a way better approach here is to show the before and after screens. So you have a finding from usability testing. Let's say this button was not noticed. This is the before screen. So this is what I've tested. This is the after screen. So this is what I improved upon after usability testing results. And if you test it again, you can also confirm that, yeah, now it works perfectly. Add some annotations around those two screens, explain a little bit, show a big title. This is just a way better way to do it. And more concise, less space, more effective when it comes to how much readers will understand from it. And the last point is that you don't have to show every state of every mockup. Some designers just go overboard and they show all the hover states, all the error states, all the empty states, all the edge cases, every single thing that they actually submitted to the team when handing off the project. And this is not the point for the portfolio, unless it was something really meaningful. So it was either difficult to answer this question and to find a solution, and it was really important for the project because it was a point in the project, one of the most important criteria. You just should stick to the basics. Show just a couple mock-ups with the most important parts. I think we trust you that you've shown all the hover states and edge cases. It is natural. Sometimes it makes sense to show it when you're actually building out the design system or it's a really detailed project, but those are small cases and quite rare. Usually it just works to show the most important, the main mockups. And I want to share one observation with you that sometimes this information overload or just long case studies, they come from the wrong approach to your portfolio. So when it comes to the case studies, some designers go with the approach that one case study is per company that they worked for or per application that they designed, and they gather all the smaller projects that they did. For example, you were working for this company for a year or two. It cannot be just one long case study with all the small projects that you did for this particular app. I would recommend splitting that. You will have more projects to choose from, and those case studies will be just higher quality because they will have less detail. You can go a little bit more in depth. As we're approaching the end of this video, let's talk about the end of our case studies. We need to show impact or some data or any metrics really. Ideally, we will be able to show that our design, once implemented, improved the metrics that we were aiming for in our goals section of the case study. So the things that we listed at the very beginning. So for example, we improved conversion rate by 10% or the task completion rate by 20%. But there's always something. Sometimes you just simply cannot show those results. They may be confidential, for example. And this is a side note. Remember to always have a written confirmation about this is the approved things that you can say in your case study. It can be from your manager, via email, via Slack, whatever. Just protect yourself. So you may not be able to share those results. You may not have access to those results. So for example, you left the company after the project happened, whatever. Or it may be an example project, so there's simply no data. The whole thing is just invented for your portfolio. It's a lie, I'm kidding, but you get the idea. So what you should do then is to have a section with the metrics that you would track, how you would measure the success, how you would measure the results. You can mention things like weekly active users, the success rate, the error rate for the task, the conversion rate, etc. Remember, try not to see the issues when you're working on your portfolio, but try to see the solutions. So I know it sounds a little bit like fake it till you make it, but we're working with what we're working with. Sometimes those are example projects and we need to make the best of it. The idea and the biggest benefit here is to show that you are thinking about the metrics for the project and that you know that, hey, I should be tracking success for my project. And this brings us to the very last mistake, which is a cherry on top for me. More of a general content advice for your portfolio, honestly. Stop redesigning UIs of very well-known products. And I know I've been talking about it in other videos as well, but I will not stop until all the YouTube UI redesigns and Spotify redesigns will disappear from the internet. Long story short, as an outsider, you have no data to back your UI and UX decisions. So basically you're saying that your gut feeling about this interface is better and justifies all the work that you did, and it's better than all the work that all the designers in those huge teams who have access to all the data from millions of users did. And objectively speaking, this is the very opposite of how you want to portray yourself in your portfolio. So you don't want to be surface level and just focus on visuals. You want to be analytical, you want to be data-driven, you want to be a responsible designer who's following up on the research that they did. And those redesign projects, they usually end up being a very UI-focused visual redesigns that only scratch the surface of the problem. And if you really want to design something for a well-known platform, it would be a way better idea to design a feature that you are missing as a user of this platform. So you could go through the whole design process with research, with concepts, with the execution and usability testing, the whole thing. Just mark it as a concept in your portfolio very loudly. You don't want to be explaining during the recruitment call that you actually didn't work for Spotify. This is my take on it. If you want to do it right. I would recommend going with independent briefs or your actual client work, but if you really want to do it, this is the way to go. There's also on my website, there is one brief that is a watch party for YouTube. And this is exactly what I am talking about. A feature for a well-known platform that doesn't exist that you can design for. So if you want some inspiration regarding how to build a brief, what should be in the scope, what should be the process, you can go there. It is a free brief. You can just copy it or adjust it to the platform that you would like to design for. Okay, this is it for today's video. I hope it was helpful and I hope that you will actually make those changes to transform your portfolio and show the world how great of a designer you are. If you feel like hanging around a little bit longer, there is a video here about my very first UX design portfolio. I made all the mistakes that you can make and it's quite funny. And there is another one here about building your portfolio in Notion with a 3 template that I created. So quite useful. Soon I'll be sharing another video about transforming your portfolio in 24 hours. So if you're not subscribed yet, I think this is a good time to remind you. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you over the next one.